Yeah, we can hear you, Carlos.
Something's not happening here. Okay, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the transaction checklist and what forms are required for a transaction. So we talked about everything from generating leads with marketing, searching the MLS to find the properties, the purchase contract, zip forms, and everything that's required prior to you getting to this point for the transaction checklist. And at this point, your offer should have been accepted and you're in escrow, and now you're wondering what do I need to do? What forms do I need and how do I obtain these forms? And we have an extensive checklist. But before we get to that transaction checklist, I wanted to show you the listing checklist. So when you get a listing, after you've gone to your listing appointment and you've gotten the listing, and what do we need from you is we need a copy of your listing contract. And it's a listing agreement packet. So there's a few different forms included in that packet. And if they're going to exclude it from the MLS or maybe have you enter it at a later time, there's a form called the seller instruction to exclude from MLS form. And then you can upload that. And for any forms that are, if applicable, you're going to see the little asterisk next to it. You guys see this here? That means if applicable. So not every transaction is going to require this. In this case, if you just get the listing, it's going to go into the MLS. All you need is the first one, the listing agreement. So that being said, it's a pretty short checklist, but what happens after you accept an offer? When you accept an offer, after you have this listing, you're gonna go into a transaction. So now we pull up the transaction checklist. And if you notice, this transaction checklist says residential when a TDS is required. So there's a couple different transactions, couple different transaction checklists that we have. The one where when a TDS is required and one when the TDS is not required. And the difference between those is, first of all, a couple of forms. Most of the checklist is the same, and I'll show you the other one in a second, but when the TDS is required, transfer disclosure statement, which you'll see here, real estate transfer disclosure statement. The seller property questionnaire is also required. In a transaction where a TDS is not required, instead of these two forms, you're going to have an exempt seller disclosure. So here's the other one where TDS is not required, and you're going to have the exempt seller disclosure. And this checklist, you're usually going to have, and it's a very small percentage of transactions that do not require TDS. So you're hardly ever going to use this checklist. This is, for an example, when a seller inherited the property, maybe the parents passed away, the children inherited the property, and they didn't live in it for the past 2 years. You're gonna use this checklist because they don't know anything about the property. They haven't lived there in 2 years, right? So this is what you're gonna use. But for any other transaction, you're gonna use the regular transaction checklist where TDS is required. So this is the checklist you're gonna use. This means you own the property, you lived in it, you're selling it, you're familiar with the property, you can answer questions about the property, or it's a rental. You still own the property, even though you haven't lived in it, it's still your property. You should know if there's any issues with it and be able to answer questions on it. So that's why we would use this one.
So which website I go this one?
I'm sorry?
This is which one website? Website.
This is, so for when you're in the transaction, these are the forms that are required for you. And you're gonna get these from zip forms. Most of them are gonna come from zip forms, but I'm gonna tell you where each form comes from, right? That's what the whole class is about. So you're in escrow. What next, right? So the first form that we want to make sure that we have, and this is a company generated form. This is not on zip forms. This is you can ask me for the PDF of this when you're ready in the transaction. And this form looks like this. And this form pretty much tells the other parties involved in the transaction that Coldwell Banker is also affiliated with Sterling Escrow. Same owner owns Sterling Escrow, Southern California Funding, commercial, and has some kind of interest in Orange Coast Title. And this is just putting it out there saying, hey, we're not hiding anything. You're using our escrow. We also own the escrow too, right? So, just a disclosure, and it requires signatures for seller and buyer. So we're generating this form. We're gonna provide this form, whether we're on the buyer side or the seller side, we're gonna need to generate this form. So I don't know how you wanna mark it on your checklist, but you are responsible for generating regardless which side you're on. Okay? The next form is the agent visual inspection disclosure. And this form looks like this. You're gonna get this form from Zip Forms. And you're gonna generate your own, but the other agent also has to generate their own. So there's gonna be two of these. And the agent visual inspection disclosure form is pretty much exactly what it says. It's an agent visual inspection of you walking through the property and noticing if there's any deficiencies in the property, right? If you walk into the living room, there's a broken window where it says here, let's see, living room area, right here. You're gonna type in broken window, right? Maybe you go to the kitchen and there's broken tiles in the kitchen, on the countertop, broken tiles in kitchen countertop, right? This does not mean that you have to go through and open all the water faucets, the spouts, and turn them on and look under the sink for leaks or behind the picture frames or under the couch. That's not this kind of inspection. This is a visual inspection. What you see when you walk through the property, that's it. If you see a tear in the carpet when you walk into the master bedroom, you're going to go to bedrooms and here, what you probably want to do is if there's 3 or 4 bedrooms, whatever it is, under bedroom, you're going to say bedroom 1, and then to the right of it, you're going to identify master bedroom, right? And then you're going to say torn carpet and entrance, or hole in the wall near the closet. So try to be a little more, I guess, exact or detailed as to where it is. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to say, if you get to the bathroom section, you don't want to say there's mold, because we're not a mold expert.
No.
So that's something that some people write. If they see black in the ceiling or in the walls, oh, there's mold in here. It's like, you can't say that, right? Because we're not mold experts. We're not certified in that. All you have to say is there's a black discoloration or stain in the ceiling or in the wall. That's it. Or if you see something that looks like stained like water stains in the ceiling, maybe from upstairs, you could see the stain from on the ceiling from downstairs. You have to say yellow stain in the ceiling. Don't say it's a water stain, because you don't know that it was a water stain. Maybe it was a milk stain. Maybe it was something else stain. But still, don't say it's a water stain. Just say yellow stain or discoloration in the ceiling. Again, you don't want to be descriptive with your findings, but you want to be descriptive with where it is, where it's located. So you could say, when you walk into the bedroom, you could say, left wall on the master bedroom, there's a hole, whatever, that way, but not descriptive of the actual defects. Just be vague about it. Any questions on this? So you're gonna provide one, and the other agent is gonna provide one. And once you fill it out, don't leave it blank, right? So if you walked into the bedrooms and you didn't see anything wrong with any of the house, write no deficiencies noted, or no defects noted, or no material defects noted, or something for each one of the rooms and the bathrooms and the kitchen and everything, because it shows that you actually went to the property. If you just leave it blank, it looks like maybe the house is perfect. And you're like, I don't have to write anything, it's perfect. Some people would leave it blank, but don't leave it blank. Show that you actually walk through the house and say, no defects noted, or no material defects noted. And then you're gonna get to the last page, and buyer has to sign it, and seller has to initial it. And then both agents sign this as well. So any forms that you see that require buyer signature, seller signature, agent signatures, there's no question about it, all those people should sign this form. So don't ever think, oh, I wonder if only the buyer has to sign this. If it says buyer, seller, agents, everybody has to sign it for it to be fully executed. Well, buyer, seller to be fully executed. Agents, it's not necessary to be fully executed, but we should have all the agent signatures on this. All right, so the next form is the purchase agreement packet, the RPA. You guys are familiar with the RPA. We had the RPA class a few weeks ago. And the RPA packet includes a bunch of different forms, including the agency disclosure, and fair housing discrimination advisory. And who provides this? The buy side provides this. So I don't know how you're gonna mark it on your form here, but the buyer's agent is going to provide this.
Oh, fire.
Buyer's agent, yes. And along with this, you're gonna have any counteroffers or addendums to the purchase contract that are gonna go with this. So when you're in SkySlope and uploading these forms, anything having to do with the purchase agreement, as far as counteroffers or addendums, are gonna go in this same line item. You can upload multiple forms to that. Okay, so let's go through and just pass everything up for that. I'm not gonna talk about the purchase contract. Buyer counteroffer, there we go. Oh, contingency removal, let's go back up here to the checklist. Next on this list is the closing statement. Closing, and this is not in the right order, this is just an alphabetical order. So that you don't, so you guys know, that these are not supposed to be fulfilled or acquired in that specific order, they're just an alphabetical order on the list. So, the next thing on the list is a closing statement. You're gonna get this from escrow. This is after escrow closes, you're gonna get a final settlement statement is what it's known as, but it's a closing statement. But if you don't find a form that says closing statement, look for a final settlement statement. And this you're gonna get from escrow again. So let me show you what that looks like. It's gonna look something like this. There's gonna be one for the buy side and one for the sell side, the list side. So whoever you're representing, that's the one you're gonna get. And it says where all the money went and all that stuff, right? Well, all the fees. At the beginning of the transaction, they're gonna get an estimated settlement statement, which is gonna give them an idea of what money's going where, right? But at the end, there's a final to show you where everything went, all the money went. So you're gonna get this from escrow. So at the end of the transaction, if you don't have this on your checklist, email escrow asking them for this. The next thing on the list is condo or other, these are pretty much HOA docs. So when you're in a transaction, if it's in an HOA, which most homes are in South Orange County, escrow orders HOA documents. And they give you a copy of it. So you can upload a copy of the HOA docs and upload it to this, or escrow will provide to you a acknowledgement of receipt of the HOA docs that the buyer's gonna sign. So the buyer signs is saying, I did receive a copy of these HOA docs. And you can just upload that, and that'll suffice. We just wanna make sure that the buyer says that they did receive them.
If there was no HOA,
If there's no HOA, then you don't upload anything. Let's see. And I don't know if I have any HOA docs. No, I don't have any sample of that. Okay, so the next form is contingency removal. Contingency removal is gonna be provided by the buyer's agent. Most cases, the buyer's agent. There might be a case where the seller is gonna provide one because they have to close on the sale on their next purchase or something, but that's rare. So you're gonna get this from the buy side. So if you're representing the buyer, buyer's agent provides this contingency removal form. And this is what it looks like. And there might be one contingency removal form that removes everything, or you might have 2, 3, 4, 5 different contingency removal forms within the transaction. And so if you're gonna say there's gonna be multiple ones, maybe the first one is removing only the inspection contingency. So investigation right here. So we're gonna say C, we're gonna remove all of these. So that's gonna be one. That's one contingency removal. So on top, we're gonna say contingency removal number 1. And then maybe a couple days later, we're gonna remove the review seller documents contingency. So we're gonna check mark all of those. And then that's gonna be contingency removal number 2. And then maybe the appraisal contingency. So there's a bunch of different ones you can remove individually if you want to. But typically, maybe you're gonna remove contingencies along with your offer. And you can check mark the ones that apply here, right? Or you don't remove any contingencies until you're supposed to. And then you will just do number 4. Buyer hereby removes any and all buyer contingencies. So you're gonna check, your buyer's gonna check that box. And this is gonna be contingency removal number 1. And that means you're removing all contingencies. Now your buyer cannot cancel.
The buyer's the one that moves out.
Yes, so yeah, so this, you're gonna get this from the buyer side, the buyer's agent. Any questions on that? And remember, you guys at home, the speaker's not, working right now, I don't wanna fiddle with it, but if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat. Let's go to the next item. Earthquake hazard report, this one is if applicable, see that asterisk there? And here is the little note to let you know if it's applicable. If the property was built prior to 1960, then it's required. Otherwise, it's not. So let's see what that form looks like. Do I have it in here? Yes, here it is. It's just, they just answer a few questions, yes or no questions. And the seller signs it and the buyer signs it. Okay, the next form. Oh, escrow instructions and earnest money, deposit receipts and amendments. This you're gonna get from escrow. So once you open escrow, within 3 days, the buyer has to wire their deposit to escrow. And you're gonna get a deposit receipt from escrow that shows you that the money was received. And that looks like something like this, okay? And the escrow instructions, within that time frame, you're also gonna receive escrow instructions, which is pretty much a summary of the terms of the purchase contract. So you have the purchase contract and then you have escrow instructions, which should pretty much mirror everything that you guys agreed to in the purchase contract. But it's a neutral third party, so it's like saying, hey, just to make sure you guys agreed to this, right? Right? Okay, cool. So everybody signs this. So they're gonna send escrow instructions to the buyers and to the sellers, and they're gonna send escrow instructions to you as the agents, a copy of that. And that's gonna look something like, I know I have some up here. Hold on. Almost, here we go. Escrow instructions. It's just a bunch of pages that are summarizing what the escrow instructions are. Okay,
And Conrad, who chooses the escrow company?
and it depends on the market. If it's a seller's market, then the listing agent usually gets to pick it. If it's a buyer's market, the buyer's agent's gonna get to pick it.
Oh, okay.
Right now, it's a seller's market, so seller's agent, the listing agent, they can ask for anything. They're like, we want escrow, we want title, we want all this stuff, so they can do that.
And every agent will have somebody that they work with, like we do.
Yes, yeah. So in this market, when you're writing up an offer for title and an escrow, you're gonna type in seller's choice. I mean, if you don't wanna get countered. But if you know you're gonna get countered, why not just throw the escrow in there? Give our escrow a shot. Because you know they're gonna counter you anyway, so make them counter that out. All right, so the next form is the fire hardening defensible space advisory. And this one is if applicable, so you can see here, it's got the asterisk. All right, and that form is, I have it kind of flip-flop there. This one, and you're gonna know if it's in a fire zone because of the natural hazard disclosure report. So if it's in a high fire zone, then this is gonna be required, but if it's not, then it's not required. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but the listing side is supposed to provide this, the listing agent. Oh,
It works.
is the sound working now? Can someone say something from home?
Hey, Carlos, can you hear me? I have a question.
Okay, it's not.
Can you hear me?
Let's see here. The next form is the homeowner's guide to earthquake safety and environmental hazards, and I kind of passed that over here. And that's this form, and this is only a signature page. You're supposed to email the whole booklet to your client, right? And this is a page that acknowledges that they received that booklet. And again, it requires everybody's signature, including the agents, so make sure that everyone signs that. The next form on the list, and again, this should be provided by the listing side. For some reason, you guys don't have any, like some of these forms towards the middle or end of the transaction, look through your checklist to see what you're missing, and then reach out to the listing agent, say, hey, can you send this to me? Or just pull it up on zip forms, have your buyer sign it, send it to the agent, have their seller sign it as long as you have it, these are just signature pages anyway, so it's not like they have to disclose anything. You want to make sure that you fulfill your checklist. So lead-based paint, this one is if applicable. And here it tells you when it's applicable. It was built prior to 1978.
So after 1978, we don't need it, right?
Right. Yeah. And this is what the form looks like here. Where are we? Right here. And again, it's just pretty much them just signing. Buyer signing, agent signing. And this is provided by the listing side.
So are they pretty much standard, like on both sides? Like the forms, so if you get it from the listing or the buyer side, they're basically standard forms.
Yes. Yeah, they're all in zip forms. And every company is going to have their own checklist of forms that they require. Another company might have, 10 additional forms that their broker requires, where this is what we have.
So we have to look at those real well, right, in case there's something in there, I don't know.
Yeah, there's some things you might not want to sign. So if there's something that you receive from the other agent that is not on our checklist, maybe bring it to me or Rich before signing it or having your client sign it, because that could put your client in a bad situation. So have us review it, and if it's even worth, because we could just say, no, our buyer's not gonna sign this. And then what are they gonna do? They're not gonna cancel, right? Because we've had other agents tell us, oh, our broker doesn't require us to sign, our clients to sign forms that are not car forms. So like that first form, the affiliated business arrangement disclosure that I showed you guys, some other companies say, no, our clients are not gonna sign that, because it's not a car form. Okay, so all we do is we save a copy of that email, upload it into SkySlope, where it shows that they said they're not gonna sign it. Right? That's the most you can do, right?
Yeah.
So the next form is market condition advisory. And it should be provided by the seller along with all the other disclosures by the listing agent, and it has buyers, sellers, signatures. And again, like with all these other just signature forms, if they don't provide it, just have your buyer sign it and send it to get the seller signature.
But this is necessary, we have to provide this one?
If it's on the checklist, it's necessary.
Oh, check
Yeah.
it.
That's the checklist, yeah. And the only time it's if applicable, if there's a little star next to it at the end. So then you might not need it. Okay? The next one is
Who's providing them?
the listing side, listing agent.
I'm
Oh, yeah, listing agent,
still listening.
yes. But again, if they don't, for some reason, they don't send it to you, just have your buyer sign it, pull it up on card, zip forms, have your buyer sign it, send it for the seller signatures as well. The next form is the mold disclosure. This is another one of our forms, company forms. So this form looks like this. Right? It's pretty much saying that if there's any type of mold or water intrusion anywhere in the house, the company is not responsible, the agent's not responsible. So they don't try to come back and sue us for anything. And this is when you're representing a buyer. Right? If you're representing the seller, I guess we'll still send it to them. But depending on which side you're on, we're still gonna need this form. So this is something that you're gonna generate, whether you're on the buy side or the list side. Orange County, LA Riverside, San Bernardino disclosures. So every county is gonna have their own county disclosures. And these disclosures pretty much talk about like the area in general. There's an airport in this area, there's a military base, there's a nuclear power plant, San Onofre, there's jails, in the vicinity. So it's a disclosure of the area in general. These are the types of things that are in this area. So later on when you move in, you're like, I didn't know there was an airport, like 10 minutes away. I didn't know there was whatever. But anyway, every county's gonna have their own version of these disclosures, and some counties don't have this. No, it's on the backside. Yeah. So, I know that Riverside doesn't have any. There might be some areas of San Bernardino that have them. LA doesn't have them there, but there's some areas in LA that do have them. So I would check with the agents, if you're working with agents from those areas. If they know if there are any disclosures, if not, if they don't know, contact the realtor board for that area and see if there's any area disclosures. For the most part, we're using the Orange County disclosures for any properties in Orange County. And you can find this in zip forms.
So the seller side provides that.
Yeah, the seller side should provide this, the listing agent should provide this. And again, this is one of those forms, if they don't do it, have your buyer sign it, send it to them.
So every county has a different one, because there's different.
Yeah, but not every county has one. But we know Orange County has one, and that's what this one is.
So they just sign Orange County to Riverside, say you're selling a house or.
If you're selling a house in Riverside, you can't use Orange County for Riverside.
Could you use that? So you don't-
If they don't have one, you just say, it's not applicable in the checklist. Yeah. Okay, so next is NHD report. I don't think I have an NHD report. So this is a report for natural hazards, so, like, is it in a flood zone, is it in a high fire zone, things like that, that escrow is gonna order. If the buyer requests it in a purchase contract, so that's one of the boxes that we check mark on the purchase contract that says seller to pay for NHD report, this is it. So when you get a copy of that report, or the signature page for that report, that the buyer received it, you're gonna upload that in this line item.
So escrow it from.
Escrow will provide it, yes. Let's see, yes, that's true. The next one is a physical inspection report or a buyer inspection waiver. So if you're representing the buyer, first of all, the buy side should provide this, right? There's gonna be some cases where the listing side is gonna already have an inspection from a previous escrow they were in that canceled. And they're gonna give it to you and say, hey, here's the report, so you guys don't have to go and pay for another one, you wanna use this one, and then they have to disclose it anyway. So, but the buyer, when submitting an offer, they're gonna say, they have 17 days or whatever the contingency period is to do any investigation of the property, including inspections. And the physical inspection is one of those inspections. So you're gonna hire an inspection company. In this case, I have an example of an inspection. And where is it? Here it is. And this is what an inspection report looks like. There's some that look a little bit different, but. So they go through the whole house and they take pictures of certain areas and things of concern and whatever, right? And then, so anyways, this is what the inspection report looks like. So if for some reason your buyer wants to waive the inspection, say, we don't want to do inspection, we just want to buy it the way it is, we're in a hurry, we want to flip it, whatever it is. Then you want them to sign the buyer inspection waiver. And I think I have that waiver somewhere in the list. It's not the next form here, but when I come up to it, I'll show it to you. So either or, you represent the buyer, we need the physical, a copy of the inspection or the waiver. Right, so either or. And this is gonna be provided by the buy side, the buyer's agent.
Excuse me,
Yes.
so basically inspection report also including the most inspection, so why still need the most disclosure here?
The mold disclosure saying that us as a company and as agents, we're not responsible, that they should do their own inspections. Saying we're not responsible if you find mold, or because people sue for anything. They'll say, let's say I'm a buyer, you represent me, I bought this house. And then later on, I find out there's mold, and then I'm gonna come and sue you and say, you knew there was mold in there, why didn't you tell me there was a possibility of there being mold in there? I'm gonna sue you, I'm gonna sue your company, I'm gonna sue the seller, I'm gonna sell the seller's agent, I'm gonna sue everybody. Right, so that's what this is for, it's protection.
It's like a waiver,
No, it's not a waiver, it's
liability waiver.
no, it's an advisory, it's like letting them know, hey, we recommend that you do any inspections on the property, and if you find anything like that, you can't come back and sue us, because we're telling you, you should do all of these inspections, pretty much. So it's not a waiver, it's like an advisory, like, hey, we're telling you, you should, inspect it thoroughly. So, any questions on this inspection or waiver? Oh, wait, there's a question here. Our escrow fees, I'm not sure what the escrow fees are. You'd have to contact our escrow officer, William. But our escrow company is Sterling Escrow 2. All right, so the next thing on the list is the preliminary title report. I don't have a copy of this, but this is something you're gonna get from title. So,
From title company.
well, you're gonna get this from escrow, but title is gonna provide it to escrow. So escrow is gonna order it. And then, they're gonna get a copy and then they're gonna email out to all parties. So you're gonna get a copy of this, from escrow. Next on the list is proof of funds and approval or pre-qual letter, which I haven't seen any pre-quals in a long, really long time. So you need your pre-approval, right? This is gonna come from the buyer's agent, the buyer side. So if you're representing a buyer, you're already gonna have this, right? Because you submitted your offer with your proof of funds and your pre-approval letter. So since you already have this, upload it. So this is gonna be from the buy side. And if you're on the listing side, they submitted their offer with their proof of funds and their pre-approval letter, so you can upload that. So either way, you're gonna have that. But this is gonna be furnished by the buyer side. All right, next one is proof of home warranty or waiver. So during the purchase contract, you're gonna either ask for a home warranty and a credit towards a home warranty. But if you don't, there's a box that you're gonna check mark that says you're waiving the home warranty. So if your buyer is waiving the home warranty, which I see in some cases is happening, then just write in next to this, in SkySub, write in buyer waiving home warranty per the contract, per the RPA.
So is that seller or buyer side?
This is, you're gonna get this from escrow if you have the home warranty. If you ordered home warranty.
Thank you.
So if you're representing the buyer, you wanna make sure to order this for your client or connect them with a home warranty company. And have the home warranty rep talk to them and walk them through what the best coverage is for the amount that is being credited to them for that particular property. Right, so if they have $850 credit towards a home warranty, have the home warranty representative contact the agent, the buyer, and say, hey, based on your house, I think these different services are best for this home. Right, so that way, if you order the home warranty and you just order what you think is right, the buyer's gonna be mad. Later on, they're gonna say, hey, why didn't you tell me, why did you order this, and whatever it is. Have them connect and then let them decide. So you're gonna order the home warranty. Your buyer's gonna order the home warranty, but you're gonna connect them. The next one on this list is the real estate transfer disclosure statement, also known as a TDS. And this looks like this. It's pretty much a questionnaire about the property. It's what does the property come with? You're gonna check out all that apply. What the seller's gonna, this is provided by the listing side, by the way. And the seller has to answer all these questions about the property. Right, so this is the seller transfer disclosure statement. And again, everybody signs this. Make sure that wherever there's a signature required that they sign. I know that zip forms for a while when you send out for digital signatures, it skips this section here for some reason. So if you're representing the listing side, before sending this out for signatures, make sure that there's a signature box, because for some reason they skip that. But again, this is provided by the listing side. All right, the next one is the representative capacity signature disclosure, also known as the RCSD. This is, if applicable, so if the property is owned by an entity, right? A trust, an LLC, corporation, anything like that, then you're gonna need this form. There's one for sellers, there's also one for buyers. So if the property is owned by, let's say, a trust, then you have to use this form, and then you're gonna check mark trust right here on number 1, and you're gonna write the name of the trust. And then down here, you're gonna write the name of the representative of the trust. Like if I'm the seller and the trust is under the Rodriguez Family Trust, on number 1, I'm gonna write the Rodriguez Family Trust. And on number 2, I'm gonna say, write my name, Carlos Rodriguez. So, and then my title is gonna be trustee. So I'm the trustee of that trust. So I'm putting them on notice that I can sign on behalf of the trust. Escrow is going to verify all this stuff because they're gonna get a copy of the trust and title and everybody to make sure that the people that are selling the property are in fact the people can sell the property. So, and then if you're a buyer and you're buying your property under a trust or LLC, then there's gonna be one that says the RCSD for buyers representatives. And then you're gonna type in, maybe check mark the box on 1B that says entity and check mark limited liability, so maybe it's an LLC, right? And then down here, you're gonna write the name of the person that can sign on behalf of that LLC and what their title is. And then it's gonna require the signature. So anyway, if it's the seller that needs one, the seller's gotta fill one out. If the buyer needs one, the buyer fills it out. But in most cases, the seller is gonna use this. And again, this is if applicable, so this will be provided by the listing side. Hope it's not confusing. The next form is the request for repairs and seller's response to request for repairs. And with this, you might only need a request for repairs. If buyer, okay. If it's sold as is and the buyer's not requesting anything, then you're not gonna need this. But it's still required, so because in most cases, people request some repairs. So if the buyer's gonna request that the seller repair certain items, or they can ask for a credit in lieu of repairing those items, they would fill this out, and then they would sign here. And then the buyer can either accept it, right here on 1A. And then they sign it, and then all you need is a request for repairs. They ask for it, seller's accepted it, they're gonna do it, fine, that's all you need. But if the seller says, no, we're gonna just give you a partial, or, let's see, seller responds right here. Number 2. Yeah. Seller checks that box, they sign it, and then they send their own form saying, we're not gonna fix that, we're gonna fix, just this, and that, or we're gonna give you a credit of this much, or a combination of things. Then you're gonna need that other form, seller response, I don't have it here. And then both of those are gonna go together, and then the seller signs that, and then the buyer has an option to either accept it or send another request for repairs. But in most cases, it's usually just a request for repairs, and the seller will agree to it, or they'll just say, we're just gonna give them a credit of this amount in lieu of the repairs. So this is gonna be provided by or furnished by the buyer's agent. Right, so any requests for repairs are asked for by the buyer. Okay, the next form on the list is a seller property questionnaire. This is another questionnaire like the TDS. And this is what it looks like. This one is, I believe, 4 pages. And then seller sign, buyer sign. Okay, the next form is this, and this is going to be provided by the listing side again, right? And the next form is the seller's affidavit not foreign status. This is going to be provided by the listing side, and this is for tax purposes to make sure that they withhold certain money for the sale of the property. There's also another form called the qualified substitution that they can use in lieu of this.
That's also gonna be a, if necessary, isn't it? 'Cause
No, this is required.
it's required for everybody, even if,
If you're a foreign, owner of the property, you're not a citizen here, then they're gonna just take taxes out.
Right.
Out of the transaction.
Yeah.
And so, but, for most cases, you're gonna use this.
oh, okay, got it.
So the seller property questionnaire is from the listing side.
Yes. So the next form is we added this one, the solar advisory and questionnaire. And this is if applicable, if the property has solar panels. This is required, and this is going to be provided by the listing side. And I don't have that on the checklist here, on the samples here. But the next form is the statewide buyer seller advisory. This is like a 16-page just book that they can read. Investigation of physical conditions, potential things that could be, I guess, in the property that they can look for. It's a lot of reading.
So both get it, buyer and seller?
should be provided by the listing side. But again, this is one of those forms that if they don't send it to you, have your buyer sign it and send it to the seller to get their signature as well, to the listing side. But this should be provided by the listing side. Okay, here's that buyer inspection waiver. Okay, so a termite inspection report. And clearance or waiver, I do have a sample of a termite inspection report. So there's nothing wrong with this property, so it's clear. Otherwise, there'd be like maybe a little paragraph here that says that there's certain termite damage or on this wall or whatever it is. But this one was clean, so nothing to worry about. But this is kind of an example of a termite inspection report. But if, let's say they didn't ask for a termite report, because in the purchase contract, you have to add it to the contract. It's not in there by default. You have to actually type it in and ask for the seller to pay for it. And if you don't, then the buyer, and what the buyer wants a report, buyer's gonna have to pay for it. So if you don't have a termite inspection report and they don't want it, then you're gonna need the waiver, the buyer inspection waiver. And that waiver, remember that buyer inspection waiver we talked about? Looks like this. And in this case, if they're waiving the physical inspection, they're gonna initial right here under this. If they're gonna waive the termite inspection report, they're gonna initial down here under this. But they're also gonna sign the bottom of this, and this only requires a buyer's signature. So you might be in a situation where they're gonna initial A or B, or A and B, if they're waiving both inspections, and then they're gonna sign.
So the termite inspection is not required, right?
No,
Okay, so either the buyer wants it and the buyer pays. Or,
if buyer wants it, they can ask for it in the purchase agreement. That the seller pay for the termite inspection.
There's no form though, it's just.
No, you write it into the contract.
but if buyer doesn't want to pay, so,
In most cases, they pay for it.
oh, they pay,
Yeah.
but this is now standard, it's now have to buyer pay.
Most people, most buyers ask for a termite inspection report,
Okay,
and they
but,
ask for the sellers to pay for it.
yeah, but it's not standard, so it's not.
It's not required,
Okay.
no. So, okay, so there's that form, and this is gonna be furnished or provided by the buyer side, right? Let's scroll down. Trust advisory, this one is also if applicable. So if the property isn't a trust, then you're gonna need the trust advisory, and this is pretty much just a signature page. It just tells you what, no material fact disclosure, that if the property's in a trust, just read through this stuff. Just to make everybody aware. Buyer sign, seller sign. Agent sign. Well, actually. Buyer sign. Yeah, seller sign look here. Okay, so that's gonna be provided by the listing agent or the listing side. Verification of property condition or waiver. This is also known as the final walkthrough. And do I have that in here? Do I not have that in here? Come on. I don't have that in here. So the final walkthrough is pretty much just a page that you're gonna use for the buyer to sign that pretty much says that the property is in the condition that you agreed to when you submitted the offer and agreed to everything, and that any repairs that were agreed to have been completed. And usually people just sign it, there's nothing, everybody is happy with it. It's as agreed to, and they just sign the bottom of it. The buyer signs the bottom of it, so this is provided by the buyer side. And then they send it to the listing side, then the seller sign it, but it's furnished by the buy side. So, let's see. And the last one on the list is the water conserving plumbing fixtures and carbon monoxide detector advisory. And it's just another signature page, but this should be provided by the sellers, the listing side. And it just tells you what the requirements are for water conserving plumbing fixtures and carbon monoxide detectors, smoke alarms and all that. Actually, not smoke alarms, I'm sorry. There's another form for that, but that's already, we don't need that form because that's included in the, I believe in the, one of the other forms. So that's pretty much it. Any questions on that? And then miscellaneous, so this checklist is what you're gonna see in SkySlope. So any other forms that you receive from the other agent that are not our company forms, you can just put them all in miscellaneous in SkySlope. And again, for you guys that don't know, that what SkySlope is an online transaction management system. It's just a website where you're gonna upload a copy of every form in the transaction, fully executed, which means signed by all parties. So the brokerage has a copy of it, and we're required to keep a copy of it, as you are required to keep a copy of it. So I don't think this is something that I mentioned before, but you're required to keep a copy of all of your transactions for 3 years.
Okay with that, okay, 3 years.
Yes.
But it can be kept digitally, we don't. have to-
Digitally, yeah, physical, whatever it is. Whenever I sell or lease a property, I print everything out that my client signed, and I put it in a folder and I hand it to them. Even though they have the option to download everything they signed, they're not gonna do that. I mean, there might be some that do it, but usually they don't do it. So I hand them a copy of it, and they're so grateful because agents don't do that anymore. You know, and when they see it, they're like, oh my God, this is great, thank you, and they're so appreciative of it because they have everything, right?
Are we supposed to like keep it in SkySlope or we make a hard
No,
copy and keep it
No,
for 3 years?
the brokerage also keeps a copy of it, and when you upload it to SkySlope, that means we have a copy of it.
Yeah.
But if you were to leave and you come and ask us for it, I'm gonna say, Sonia, I'm not gonna help you, you left. You
So we
left
should
us.
Make a copy then.
You should keep a copy of it, yes.
A hard copy.
You're required to keep a copy. No, you can keep a digital copy of it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Okay, just send it to you. so.
Which brings me to the next thing that I wanted to talk about. File management. This is very important when you're in real estate, because some of you might be really like strict about your files and how you keep them and everything. For real estate, just to show you how I keep my files, that doesn't mean it's the best and only way. This is just how I keep my files. So in a transaction, let's say I have a folder here that I named transactions, right? So let's do new folder, transactions. Okay, and within that folder, I'm gonna make another folder. So right click new, where's the folder? And this is gonna be 123 Main Street. And this is my transaction. Let's say I'm representing the buyer. Cool, I'm gonna open that file, and within that file, I'm going to add all of my forms that, let's say these are all my forms for the transaction. I mean, there's more, but. Okay, so this is how I keep all my forms. But not only that, is I'm gonna create a folder that says, this is what I do. Executed, just executed. That means fully signed by everybody, right? So everything that I have fully signed by everybody, I'm just gonna put in that folder. And then like out here, I can have probably my initial offer. If I have a property profile that I did, that I had a title pull on the property. If there's any other documentation, I just leave it here outside the folder. Anything that's fully signed, I put it in this folder. So guess what? Now when I go to SkySlope and I wanna upload something, I just say, oh, here it is. Drag it in, drag it in, drag it in, right? So it's easy for me to find. So now, if I go to, let's say, my transactions folder here on my desktop, right? Let's say somebody called me about the transaction. They want to have a question about it. I'm gonna open it. Oh, they're calling me about 123 Main Street. I'm gonna open that file and let me go in my executed documents folder and then find that particular form. I know exactly where it is.
So the forms are in that address. that you just typed.
Yeah, anything having to do with that transaction, any forms are gonna be in that folder. So let's say I go back to transactions. I have another transaction.
Oh, okay.
My other transaction is 55, I don't know, Blueberry. So, and then I have another transaction at, again, folder, 127 Barranca. Anyway, you guys get it, I misspelled it, but, so then in that folder, I'm gonna have anything having to do with that transaction.
And those
And I'm gonna create an executed folder for that. Oh, did I spell it wrong? Now, anything that's fully executed or signed, I'm gonna put in this folder. So now, guess what? If I ever need something, I'm gonna have a transactions folder full of all my transactions that I could just go through easily and find anything I need to on any of those,
Where's it executed?
inside each folder.
Oh, they're in there. Oh.
Yeah, so first you have to get to whichever one you're looking for, right? So
Okay.
which one, in this case, which one do you wanna look at? Okay, so let's go to Blueberry. And this one doesn't have an executed folder because they just,
Of course.
yeah, but then you're gonna find whatever files in there, but it's the same thing, right? Whichever folder you're looking in, you're gonna go into the executed files and look for them. Yeah, so it's just easy to find that way. I do the same thing with email. So within your Gmail, and I know mostly everybody uses Gmail, on the left, you can create folders. I have a transactions folder, and within that transactions folder, I create other folders for each one of my transactions. And then any emails having to do with that particular transaction, I move them into the folder for that transaction. The same way I'm doing here. Because I've sat so many times next to agents that need help, and they have to look through their email, and they have to look through thousands of emails to try to find
Yes.
that one email. It's like, just move, as soon as you're done with the email, move it into the folder. So that way, whenever you're gonna look for anything having to do with that transaction, you just go to the left, click on the folder, and now it only shows you emails that have to do with that transaction. Pretty easy, right? It makes your life so much easier. Any questions on that?
So, and you said you keep the transaction 3 years. So if the buyer, how many years can sue the, you know?
I don't know, but you're required to keep it for 3 years.
I hear the buyer sue, you know, everything possibly is 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know.
But after 3 years, is it even this period, it's we got law too, so.
After 3 years, you,
No law.
Yeah.
No law too, right?
yeah, I keep everything, actually, so I keep everything on Dropbox. So I go to dropbox.com, you get an account,
Okay.
you get free, so, so much storage for free. If you want more, you pay for more. But you can also download a folder onto your desktop. You can download the app onto your phone for Dropbox.
Dropbox, how much?
It's free, but you only get, so I think like 5 gigs for free or something like that. After that, you have to pay for more. But so all these folders that you see that I created, I have a Dropbox folder on my desktop, and all of the transaction files, they're in my Dropbox folder, which then syncs online and also syncs on my phone. So let me show you guys. I go to Dropbox and I have folders for transactions. And see, here's all my transactions. And inside each folder, like let's say this is a lease I just did right now, just recently. And see executed. All the executed documents, then I have a folder for escrow instructions, escrow documents, things like that. But also, if you're representing a seller, I also create a folder that says offers. And within those offers, I'm gonna create a folder for each offer I receive. Because each offer is gonna come with the purchase agreement, the proof of funds, and any additional information they're gonna send, right, in the pre-approval. So let me show you, give you a better example.
Dropbox, how to spell Dropbox?
Dropbox. I pay $13 a month for the standard.
DROP.
Dropbox. Box. BOX.
There's other companies, you could even do Google Drive. So let's say for Blueberry, I'm representing the seller. I'm gonna create another folder that I'm gonna name offers. Okay, so within this folder, I got an offer from, create another folder. The Smiths. And then I got an offer from the Johnsons. And they got, and so forth. Let's say I got 10 offers. In each one of these folders, I'm gonna keep any documents for those offers, right? Just keep everything organized. Otherwise, you're gonna go crazy with all these different, and then so you can create a summary page and present the offers to your client, and then whenever they accept an offer, then you go through and pull up the offer that you want to accept or counter, or whatever it is that you want to do. But this is a good way because you should be keeping all of these forms, any offers you receive, in a file somewhere. So if I'm representing the seller, I'm gonna say here. So maybe if I'm representing the seller, I'm gonna say new listing. So here I'm gonna save my listing contract. I'm gonna save maybe any marketing things that I did for it, maybe the photos for the property, folder for the photos, a printout of the MLS listing, anything having to do with it, with that listing itself, right? I'm gonna put it in that folder. And then once we accept an offer, well, as we receive offers, I'm gonna save them here. And then when we accept an offer, then anything that's executed is gonna go in that folder. It's just so much easier to find.
So I guess my question was, when you get that Dropbox, does that keep your own computer from getting filled up? So it puts it, since you're paying for another company to save your documents, you're not. using
Yeah,
it?
I believe it doesn't save it. I'm not sure if it saves it locally, but
The sites in the file.
it saves it in the cloud. So like you saw, I'm able to access it on my phone. Right? I can go on Dropbox.com from any computer, log in and then access it from there. So.
Just keeps it organized.
Yeah, and you can do Google Drive, Dropbox, there's a bunch of different types of cloud storage services you can use.
So it is.
This is the one I've been using forever, so.
Yeah, and if something will happen with your hard drive or something in your PC, so you have another copy on the Dropbox.
Yeah. Any questions? Anybody at home? Let me share, see who's out there. Okay, so I lost a few people there.
Carlos, I know
Yeah.
Carlos.
I'm still here.
Okay, I guess if there's no questions, Harriet, I can't hear you because the speaker's not working. If
Oh.
you have a question, you can type it into the chat. But I think what you're saying is, thank you, Carlos, you did such a great job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's typically what she said. That's usually what she said. Okay, so with that being said, actually, perfect timing. We'll see you guys next week. I'll email you. I think the next class is gonna be on how to create a CMA for a listing. Yeah, yeah, and a comparative market analysis, which is pretty much, if you're gonna get a listing, you need to evaluate, right? So you're gonna look in the MLS to search for comparable properties to come up with a listing price, a suggested listing price. Because the seller's always gonna have in their mind, well, Zillow said it's worth this much, which is BS. It's, you know, it's just an algorithm that tells them this is about how much it's worth. But that's why they need someone like us, because we're gonna bring them back to reality and say, hey, look, these are similar properties to yours. This is what they sold for. They're fully upgraded, yours is not. Anyways, this is what the suggested list price should be for your property. Ultimately, it's gonna be up to them what they wanna list it for, but anyway, that's what the class is gonna be about next week, showing you how to come up with the valuation for that. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Carol. Other Carol. See, the guy, the young
Oh,
guy.
fabulous presentation. See, I knew she would say something like that. Thank you, Harry.